so good to meet you. Thank you so much for
Yes,
taking a minute out
yes,
today.
of course. I kind of panicked yesterday. I'm like, wait, where am I supposed to like? Usually, I check the calendar for the next day, and I'm like, there's no Zoom link. So
Yeah,
thank you for sending that.
yeah, and that's an email that I kind of dip in and out of, so I'm glad I caught it and I got it over to you.
Oh, yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah.
we're in good shape. Well, cool. Well, we'll just start fresh at the top. Again, it's so
Okay,
great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today.
yeah. Perfect.
So before we get into your good work, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic was
Uh-huh,
changing the world, changing the way we interact with things. How did
uh-huh.
you get through that COVID time period, and how has it influenced the way that you do things today?
Oh, you're just diving into one of the most fertile ground creativity wise that we had. So I would say that the person that I wrote the book about, Shauna, so she's my co-author. We did a million different interviews when she used to live here in La Jolla. And then we moved her to Palm Springs. So she walks 12 to 15 miles a day. So, and was struggling with schizophrenia. So we wanted to have her have a little more chance to be in the open air and to kind of just feel free. It's a very LGBTQ friendly environment.
Yeah.
So during COVID, she was there. So I had tasked myself with writing this book back in like 2018 and no, 2017. And, three teenage kids, one with special needs, my stepdaughter. There was just no way I was going to be able to do it. So actually, COVID allowed us the time, it afforded us the unstructured freedom to be able to start really working in earnest on the story. And so for me personally, it was a very rich time of reflection and working with Shauna a lot, like via Zooms and texts. And I feel like we got a lot of contemplative kind of like energy that really helped move the story forward. And again, it still took a while to get it completely in its like released form this year, but it's also um I look back at that time period and I think it was beautiful for a lot of reasons. Of course, horrible medically for so
Yeah.
many people, yes. However, a beautiful time to kind of pause and do something creative.
So let's
So
peel back the layers of this relationship and writing
uh-huh,
the book and this journey. But I want to
uh-huh,
begin with this. If you were to be in front of a bunch of 12-year-olds right now at career day, and one of the kids wanted to know
uh-huh,
what you do for a
uh-huh,
living, how do you answer that child?
uh-huh. Okay. So I'm a psychologist and not sure working with people who've had really severe trauma, people who've had some really difficult times growing up. And they sort of later on in life start to realize that not all the pieces of their jigsaw puzzle fit together the way that they would love them to fit. And so they start exploring where are the missing pieces and where can I kind of align and create different shapes and then find out where my borders are. And so I work with people to help put that all together. And so one of the things that I noticed was that there was somebody in our community that was living on the streets and living on cardboard boxes, if you can believe it. And so the reality is that we became friends. And I extended goodwill to this person and I tried to help her get housing, which we have done now. She's never been back on the streets for 10 years. And it's been a beautiful story. And she also had a lot of mental struggles. So, what I do is kind of help somebody. It's almost like being a coach, and you sort of help somebody along to get them to a place where they can start making sense of everything that's happened. But with Shauna in particular, I'm just a friend. I'm somebody that was just being a good neighbor and said, hey, looks like you're struggling. How can I help? And then we got the whole community to come together and really rally and we did a GoFundMe that helped Shauna get to the next step in life. And the rest is history. So,
That's wonderful. So what is the book about? Is it about the kind of the journey or the
yes,
a bio or how does it work?
kind of what we were saying with the jazz thing. It's sort of like we just put together all these pieces of what became Shauna's story over time, how she slid into homelessness, how what mental illness looked like for her, how it sort of came up, in college. It sort of she probably had a first schizophrenic break there. Um, Families and reconnecting. She hadn't been in touch with family like for 17 years, and so we kind of started putting all the pieces together where every chapter had something unique about her. Like I think she's a walking spirit personally. So I worked a lot with people with near-death experiences, and I feel like Shauna's got one foot here and one foot somewhere else. But a lot of synchronicities, I put those in a chapter. And so it was really hard to write myself into the story because I am a big part of the journey together. We got her off the street and sort of like have been getting 1,000 texts a day from Shauna. I've taken her on, she never left the country. So I took her this last June on a trip to go to all the Euro Pride events because, like in Hungary, it was getting dangerous and people weren't allowed to express themselves in Pride. So she's the I in Intersex, and so in the LGBTQI community, that's Shana. And so she straddles that kind of ambiguous genitalia by anatomy, half male, half female kind of situation.
Yeah.
And so we just did a lot of educating people. So I took her to do Euro Pride in Portugal. We did Paris Pride, London Pride. So all of that, was sort of like leading up to all of that in the book. And then we've done a bunch of social media. She went from when I first met her, she was sitting on the street corner with an old Obama phone and just kind of trying to, punch one number at a time.
Yeah.
And then you had to go through like 3 letters to get to a letter that you wanted to text. So, and now she's like queen of social media. Our handle is Soul Wise Team, and she has like 1 million views on Instagram, 1 million views on TikTok. And it's just about her journey of expressing herself and being herself and trying to understand herself. And then by virtue of her journey, she's inspiring a lot of other people to just try to realize that it's never too late to take a risk, to be who you really are authentically. So the challenge, though, in the book was I had a publishing partner, and so she kept saying you have to put yourself in the story because you are an important part of the story. So the only thing I'd ever written, aside from 5 million essays and research articles and a dissertation, was this 486-page dissertation. So the thought of writing a story was really new to me, and but it was wonderful, and it just started, like I said, during COVID, it just started pouring out. So
So you had mentioned that you have children that have special needs.
I have a stepdaughter with special needs, yes.
Okay, yeah, I have a son who's 20, and I just think about your story and what you're doing and how much of living in that world, because it definitely gives you a different take on life. How,
Oh,
how much of that
absolutely.
inspired you to do what you're doing today?
Oh, so much because when she entered our lives, I mean, she was just tiny, and so uh, it has been such an enlightening journey with her. And she has something called Smith-Magenis syndrome. It's pretty rare. So she's cognitively maybe more like 5 in a 20-year-old's body now. But that neurodivergence and working with school systems and working with her diligently and finding creative ways to enter her world absolutely primed me well to work with Shauna because they're now including schizophrenia as a form of neurodivergence because it really is in a very extreme form. And so it absolutely primed me for that. And also the creativity that when you can't find one route of expression or one avenue in, you find another and you just find ways to laugh all day and you just find new ways to have a take on the world. And so one of Shauna's famous little sayings is just stay curious, stay curious, Doc. And that is how she lives her life. It's like she said when she was on the street, she never knew what was going to happen the next day. But she was curious about it. She wasn't filled with fear or trepidation. She was just like, okay, let me see. I don't love this situation, but how can I make it great? How can I make friends at the local fish shop or the place that might make me an omelet or something? And she had that curiosity. And I think that my stepdaughter, same thing. She just sort of, it was like her whole world would talk through Disney characters. So if I woke up and said, hey, what's Elsa from Frozen doing today? And then that would be like an in to get a really great laugh and conversation.
So let's go back to 12 years old. What did you want to be when you were that age? What was your dream job?
Ah, 12. I guess I didn't know it then because I was being fed sort of like, career ideas from my dad all the time. You'd be a great international lawyer. You this. But I loved languages. And I never understood until I became a psychologist that the reason I love languages so much wasn't about the language itself, although I do love languages in that way. but it was a way to connect with people, and it was a way to connect with so many cultures. And so for me, that's the beauty of being a psychologist and doing what I do, is I can connect to so many different people around the world, and then using languages. If I'm in France, I can speak French, and then I start connecting with the French people. And so my 12-year-old self would probably be really excited to know that all that curiosity I've always had about people and making friends and making people feel a sense of belonging, that I'm still doing in my daily life and career.
So, who's been your hero? Who's been your inspirational force that's allowed you to find your voice and to do what you do?
It will sound very cheesy. Two people. One is Mother Teresa. I feel like I was just always in awe, and I'm a very, very spiritual person, but I didn't grow up with any one religion. My family, everywhere we traveled in life, they'd say, let's go to the Buddhist temple. Well, let's try the Hindu temple. Let's try the Jewish temple. Okay, now let's go to the Catholic Church. So that's how I was raised. So there's a lot of like spirit and acknowledgement of something bigger, but not in any one form. And so there was just something that gripped me and pulled me so long ago with Mother Teresa, about the way that she had such a compassion for people who were really struggling, the way that she really got in there in their stories and their voices and just felt their pain, and also said, okay, let me help make things better. And to me, that has always been like, that's just she's a personal hero. And then the other one would be in my field, there's somebody named Dr. Cornelia Wilbur, and she wrote a book called Sybil. And back in the day, nobody knew what to make of this book, because it was somebody who had what they used to call multiple personality disorders. And now they call it dissociative identity disorder. But that became my specialty, which was people with very severe trauma and how they split into parts of self, and then how those selves could be healed through therapy. So she was also a personal, like, heroine of mine, I guess you would say.
So, let me ask you this. What is, when you get into trauma and you're helping people get through that, you have to get into some darkness, you have to get into some people's
Yes,
lives.
yes.
What is it about you every day that allows you to operate at a high level to help them, but protect yourself and your soul and what you're doing? What is that combined effort for you?
Okay, really good and important question. So I would say I really fight for my joy every day. Like I fight to find something to fill me with gratitude and joy. And as much as it is dark, there's also something incredibly beautifully profound in therapy, where when somebody makes a deep connection or they put pieces from their childhood back together, it's like there's something that you've done together with somebody in that witnessing that is so powerful and so beautiful. So it becomes light affirming. Like it kind of becomes the panacea. I get like it just there's something that happens that transmutes all fear and darkness. And that's why I also love the stories of near death survivors, because people who've been really abused in childhood, sometimes they talk about leaving their bodies. And they talk about being held by angels, or they talk about the body was down there getting hurt, but I was up here on the playground with angel mommies. And so that's very similar to people who've had like a heart attack, cardiac arrest, or something in an accident, and they go up and they feel like their souls have left their body and they're with, the light. And so I started realizing that they're using very similar terms. So that gave me a lot of hope that even in the darkest times, that there is something really light that's helping and holding and healing. And that gets people through no matter what is happening. And so that protection and that caring really makes me feel like when I'm in the therapy moment, even though it's exhausting and difficult sometimes, I feel like there's a greater light that's holding all of it. And it's hard. I had to take about 10 years off. I raised kids. I couldn't bring my full self to therapy and my full self to kids. So I had to take a little chunk of time off, which I think is really important when you're feeling what they call compassion fatigue, burnout,
Yeah.
um, that you take a little time to remove yourself. But also finding the arts and creativity and music, like those things are so vital in keeping our souls like, alive and connected.
Yeah. So let's
So
say
yeah.
you had a dream tonight and you ran
Uh-huh.
into the 16-year-old self in your
Uh-huh.
home that you grew up in, and you show that version of you a book that's your life today. Would they believe how it turned out?
Oh yeah. And I'd be like, yep, we saw this coming. Yep. And then I'd probably hear my parents' voice going, oh no, hope you're not getting in too deep with, somebody else's struggle, because my dad was always telling me, you can't save the whole world. And I was
Yeah,
like, but yeah, I can try. So,
absolutely.
and that's, I think, all we can ask for is in our own little pocket of whatever we feel comfortable in. Are we doing something to make this place a better place? So, yes, absolutely.
So if you can meet anybody alive today that you find inspirational or wonderful, who would you love to meet that might help you on your journey with what you're doing?
Ah, mm. I mean, I love the realness and the groundedness of Michelle Obama. I feel
Yeah.
like she's so, she just speaks it like it is. She just talks to the people in the way that, the common, she has an incredible gift of being able to see the common humanity in all of us. And so it would be my pleasure, and Oprah, like those two, where they're just bringing people together. Their entire goal is to make everybody feel like they belong in this human community, and give everybody strength to find one more way to get through a difficult time, and lots of fun and laughter.
Yeah, absolutely. So let
Yeah.
me ask you this. Of everything that you've done in your life, everything you've accomplished and evolved to, what are you the proudest of?
I mean, of course, my children. I've spent every last waking moment, in their struggles and their joys. Absolutely, my children. I'm also proud that no matter how difficult it became in my own personal life, my first marriage was to my high school sweetheart. It was incredibly challenging because he had gone through so much trauma. I had no idea what PTSD was at that point. I was very young. But we journeyed together for 16 years through the struggle, and I really just like kept opening my heart to try to see what we were supposed to learn from this, and how can we together make, fortify somebody to get through the rest of what they had to get through. And then, of course, I went to a PhD, and then I'm very, very proud of my PhD and everything I've accomplished with that. And also the research and the clients that I've served, and just being able to just create these new understandings and awarenesses. But all of it together, I mean, absolutely, my children are, my biggest kind of sense of, yeah, I did that right. I gave them all the energy that needed. And I did have a brother that tragically passed away when I was 22. He was 20, and it was in an accident. And it was horrible. And my family has done amazing philanthropic things afterwards to be able to honor his spirit, because he was a wonderful guy. But I think through that journey too, I had to really work extra hard to find light, to find meaning, to find purpose. When you're 22, trying to start a life and go, wait, how could that possibly happen? But I just kept going to people who had things maybe even worse or similar situations. And I kept trying to find ways to find a new way, a new path to the light. So I think those would be the answers.
Yeah, for sure. So
Yeah.
between the day job of having to kind of help people through trauma and
Uh-huh.
obviously, being a fan of Michelle Obama and the political situation we're living through, the fear and all of the
Yeah.
uncertainty, there's a lot of weird things going on and there's a lot of heavy. How do you
Yeah.
remain hopeful? How do you remain hopeful for the future?
Well, I think right now, so when all of this was going on in my life, this is back in the 80s, early 80s, before we had the internet, before we had social media. So I would take my little self to the back medical libraries and try to find journals and books on anything anyone had written about how they got through pain. How did someone get through the concentration camps? I read Viktor Frankl. You just keep looking to people who have gone and tried to walk ahead and say, hey, this is what got me through. In my moments of surrender, this is how I found strength. And so I think now we just live in this incredible age where you can get on any kind of chat room, you can go to any kind of social media, and you can try to find what you need. And of course, now with chat, it's like you can find a way to ask some pertinent questions about what next steps might be, or how you could break those down for yourself. And then you can find the appropriate help and guidance. And I think that is just incredible how far we've come with that. And used in, for the right purposes, I think that these are all incredible healing tools that we can access.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, clients, everyone that
Uh,
knows you, but you run the show. What's your
yeah.
perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Um, compassionate. I think I'm a humanitarian first and foremost. I'm definitely a joiner. I was always that kid on the playground that if there were any stragglers in the margins, I would bring them all in. I love that about myself. I think that maybe sometimes I can spend a little more time on, maybe my own things getting through instead of constantly worrying about everybody else. But I do think that there's beauty when we realize that we are stronger together and that we're stronger in numbers. And so helping somebody finish the race, like to me, that's what it's all about.
So if anybody wants to pick up the book, they want to hire you, they have questions, any of the good business, where's the best place to go?
So I would love if they would visit, well, Amazon or Barnes and Noble, all the kind of like typical places to get a book. And if they would visit my website, which is soulwisesolutions.com, SOULWISE solutions.com, because Shauna's stories in there, we did a lot of blogs, the mayor of Palm Springs wrote a testimonial, and it just gives more of like a visual of like who she is and what she's overcome, and then just a little bit more about what we do.
Wonderful. I will put all of those links in the show notes. This has been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for your story.
Yes,
Thank you for your time. Best of luck with everything.
yes, thank you. You
Cool.
too.
Thank you.
Blessings.
I appreciate it.
Okay.
Take care.